Welcome to today's conversation with one of my absolute besties, Dr. Cynthia Bergh, who was trained as a chiropractor like me. And we wanted to dive into a juicy conversations about all things around the chaos of the world and how to stay centered if you're a business person. We're going to talk about, how things are changing and how you can really stay current and evolve with all the crazy energy on the planet. So, Cynthia, welcome for this beautiful conversation we're going to have. So, let's start off by having you kind of introduce yourself and what you're up to.
Well, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it. It's so great to be here and have this conversation. I know we talked a couple weeks ago, and our conversation was so interesting and inspiring, and we just kept the energy kept building and building and building. We're like, we have to do this live. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity to jump in and do this. And I know that a lot of people who might be checking this out might not know who I am, so I'll just say a few words. I'm Dr. Cynthia Bergh. I have worked as a chiropractor for a couple decades now. But what I focus on and have always been interested in, even as I was like a little kid, playing in the woods, was the magic that animated life. And that was why I went to chiropractic school to discover and learn about this thing called innate intelligence that chiropractors talk about. So I know that you went to chiropractic school, and so we have this in common. I'll just do a little sidebar for the audience because our relationship is very personal. We actually went to high school together. We went to, I think, junior high together
We went to
too.
junior high together too. Oh my gosh. In Wilmington, Delaware. And people say, what state is that in?
Yeah. Isn't that in North Carolina? That's what I used to hear when I was a kid all the time.
Right. Exactly.
Um, So anyway, but we both went to chiropractic school and didn't actually know this until I had my first practice back in Delaware. And this lovely woman came into my practice, and she started telling me that her daughter sent her in, and that she was from the same area of town that I was from. And I started to put two and two together, and I realized, oh my goodness, this is my friend Kelly's mom. She has just sent her into my practice, and she doesn't even know this. So that was a great connection. I think we talked on the phone, and then it was like 6 months later, we were at a really obscure chiropractic technique seminar, and probably a room of 100, 120 people. And I look across the room, and there is Kelly. And the rest is history. Um, Even though we grew up in the same town and we really enjoyed each other and things like that, we had no idea that our interests ran this deep. Um, so years later now, I have had a practice in several different locations. But what I continue to really focus on is this innate intelligence that we have. And at this moment in my life, I'm even stepping outside of playing the role as a chiropractor, and moving more into kind of a teaching, facilitating space that I've also been doing for over 20 years. It's just kind of been more on the side. And the reason I've done that is because times are crazy right now. We're in so much chaos, and our innate intelligence is a birthright. It's what we're all born with. And so many people have no idea what it is. And it's so important to check out things like chiropractic, acupuncture, like all these other things that work with this intelligence of the body, that the body has an intelligence, that it's self-organizing, that it's magnificent, that it's healing and growing all the time on its own. But a lot of people don't know to look for it. So what I'm really shifting my focus now to do is to even go just directly to people and help them themselves with, how do I relate to this magnificence? How do I find my own operating instructions inside? And that's through their body. So this is how we get into an embodied conversation, which I know you and I both relate on, Kelly.
We so relate on that. And yeah, the embodiment and how can we connect to the innate wisdom, as you said, which was like really the cornerstone of chiropractic, no matter what style you practice. And I know we will have listeners that know what NSA is, network spinal analysis, and that was the seminar. And so there are people that follow, right, that know what that is. And so the obscure of the obscure, Wilmington, Delaware, and we come back together. And and our friendship really bloomed from there. And then it's like our paths, it's amazing. So we've remained really close, and how our paths have crossed in different bodies of work, but really that center of that innate wisdom, and where you are going more in the direction of teaching and facilitating. And I know you do SRI, and you do this nature work, and that stems out of South America, like all these things, our animal wisdom that we both love. Yeah, and it's funny because as you and I were talking about your center called Liqueur in Asheville, right? I had remembered and forgotten we were even in French class together in French Honor Society as geeks way back when. So, tell people, like, what does Liqueur mean to you? Why did you name your center that, and why is that so important to you?
Wow. Well, that's a really big question. And what's interesting is I don't think I've ever really publicly shared liqueur and why I have named it that, but but I will receive that question and happily share because it has been on my mind a lot today. And so liqueur is the French word for the heart. And when I was a kid, actually, I used to get into bed and occasionally, not something that I would plan on doing, but it would happen, would be this feeling of kind of ecstasy that would happen in my heart center. And it was this morphing, this paradoxical experience of a ball turning into a cube, turning it from black to white to all of these. And it was the most delicious and yummy thing. And so I knew I was to pursue that. So, what this has come to be is it's the loving presence, and it's the loving
Mm.
presence that's all around us. And now, though, when I was a child, it would just come and visit, and it's not like I could call on it. But now it's becoming very real, and it shows up all the time, and it's easy to transition into that space. So, I do believe that this is the point of so much of the work and so much of what we're doing right now, as human beings. And part of what I help people do, the embodied piece, is that the secrets to that, the keys to that are actually within our ability to feel our body, our material form, in this life is the gateway, and it gives us access to both the wisdom and the energy that we need to take that next step. And so as we build capacity to just really lean in and really experience the fullness of life, and that's everything. I mean, feeling it
Yeah.
all, the good, the bad, the ugly, the ripped inside out, the torn upside down, the ecstasy, because it's all the same. And we start to
Yeah.
figure that out, that it's from that space of capacity that we can really birth that wisdom from our heart. And
Mm.
so there's the short cliff notes of that. And as a chiropractor and people who are familiar with network spinal analysis, Donald Epstein, the developer of that, used to say, you have to have a spine before you can open your heart. And so we have to
Mm.
vertically align our energetic bodies and our being so that we're stable and strong, so that our heart can really bloom and flourish. Um, and otherwise, you see these, paradigms that don't quite work where, someone's abusing someone and they say, "Oh, you just need to forgive," and it's like, well, yes, in the right place, in the right time. But when someone's actively abusing you, the action step is not to forgive them; it's to end the abuse and, change the situation. And then when everything's safe, then you do that. So it's really about right place
Absolutely.
and right time. And I do believe that that comes with that clear embodiment, that ability to align, kind of in that upright fashion of knowing your yes and your no and having really clear boundaries. And from that, our hearts really get to lead. And
Mm.
then it becomes a different world. And I think, Kelly, what prompted this conversation is, that we're watching the rules that people have followed, the, ideas of this is how you market, this is how you do this is how we elect a leader, this is how we do this, this is how we do all these things, that the rules are changing. And that, wait, this worked for me yesterday, this worked for me last year, this has always worked for me, and now it's not working. So,
Yep.
what do we do?
What do we do? Right. And the tried and true strategies and structures are falling apart. So you and I were talking about, well, let's first address I wanna reiterate, birthing the wisdom of your heart. That's a writer downer. Cynthia.
Yeah.
Like that is beautiful. And if you're not using that in your marketing, it's so you. And then you've got the heart behind
I'll have
you.
to write that down.
Yeah, that was some gem, right? Birthing the wisdom of your heart. And I see that that is what you're doing and what you're a stand for. And that ecstasy that we talk about, it's so easy to want to just go there and live there, right? And when we've had those high vibe places and been in those places, and you and I have both have had very spiritual experiences, it's like we're also in this 3D world of chaos. And so, how can we really integrate? And the other thing that you said was about the feelings. Like, let's not make our feelings wrong. And so much of, I think, Western medicine is like, well, let's fix the feeling. Whatever you're feeling, let's fix it. Versus one of the things I love about your teachings and my teachings is like, let's honor it. Let's honor the feeling and not judge it for bad or wrong. And that really is that step of like curiosity. And I think that we're so used to numbing it, cutting it out, forgetting about it, move on, suck it up, which is the old way. Suck it up and move on. Well, a lifetime of repression of us, especially as women, giving ourselves permission to feel all of the feelings is what it means to be human. So I guess the question we're really getting curious about is when the old structures don't work, and let's talk about business. So you have this amazing course that you're co-leading with Ellen, which I want to share my personal experience with it. Because it was absolutely amazing. And these are the skills to how do we navigate? And the world is getting crazier, right? Wouldn't you agree? Like the vibrations, like we are learning to adapt to different vibrations that our bodies have never felt before. And we're meant to also be in a 3D world of functioning as a mother, as a sister, as a mom, as a business owner. So, what do you think is happening, or what do you think is happening on the planet as the structures are changing? Like, what are we meant to do?
So, well, oh my goodness, there's like,
There's so much
hours
there.
and and there's so much that I would love to say about every little element that you just spoke. But what I would say, okay, so what's happening right now? I think
Yeah.
what's happening right now is that we're realizing where what's coming up in our awareness as a collective, like so many people are starting to notice, is all of the ways in which we've outsourced our power. We've externalized our source. So whether it's an authority into a doctor, a leader, a politician, our mother, our partner, whatever it is, you name it, ways that we have viewed them as having the answer, as being the one who was there to do it for us, to lead us, to guide us, that had that wisdom. And so we're becoming really aware through pain, and through like a kind of a rapid detox of what doesn't work and what's really not serving us. And so what's left is how do we find, how do we trust ourselves again? How do we, when there's been so much distrust, and that comes back to the core of there's nothing wrong with us. There's
Mm.
absolutely nothing wrong with us.
And we're
And so
not broken,
we're not
right?
broken. It
Oh,
is, as we learned in chiropractic school, it's like, this is the wisdom. What's the wisdom of the body? The body is so innately, infinitely wise. So your symptom is actually the wisdom of your body outsmarting that. It is the infinitely wise response. So
yeah.
then we go, well, what's really happening here? It's like, oh my goodness, your anger. Well, you should be angry with what's happening. That is actually a healthy response to someone taking your power, to
Yes.
abuse, to all of these things, to someone. When we get, my definition of the purpose of anger is when we get pulled out of alignment of, you've got your physical body, your emotional body, your emotional wisdom and intelligence, your mental wisdom and intelligence, you've got your soul wisdom and intelligence, you've got all these. And when that gets pulled, when something tries to pull that out of alignment, you should get angry, right? And it's like a
Absolutely.
physical feeling because you need kinetic energy to bring that alignment back in. So when we understand that, we realize that our feelings, our emotional intelligence, like that's for us.
Yeah.
That is the wisdom of your experience. So, to feel safe again, and that is so important, to not feel like right now we're in a culture that's taught we're supposed to control our mind, our emotions, and our body. So we drain and deplete our energy constantly, and we're constantly tired and overworked because that's not our mind's job. Our mind's job
Exactly.
is to focus our attention on what we want. Okay.
Mm.
Our body's job is to run our body. Our emotions' job is to give us the fuel and run our emotions. But as long as we deny them or we think there's something wrong with them, we can't access that fuel. We can't access the wisdom that's for us. So the first thing we have to do is, again, learn how to trust ourselves, learn how to trust our body, and learn how to trust our emotions. So I know the work, that you do with, so many women is to help validate, like if we only knew how okay we were,
Yeah, I
uh,
know. And
if
safe places to integrate and tools to integrate. In fact, I remember going through your course more recently. We went through a stage where you're addressing anger and to be able to really feel it and allowing it to build in the safe place. And anger, as a woman, I will tell you, anger is not one of those emotions that I have felt safe to feel, and I think it goes back to my childhood because there can be a lot of conditioning, right? It's like it seems like the gender differences, like it's often okay for the boys to be angry and get that aggression out, and yet but not for the girls, right? There's a lot of conditioning in the field around that, and I remember that was a pivotal point in working with you and going through this course, is allowing it, like really, really feeling it. And even though I've done that for other people, to be in a class where I'm in the receiving, oh my gosh, so beautiful to feel it and to express it. So, yeah, and there's a lot of things to be angry about right now as the structures are falling. And we're not going into a political conversation, but anger is a normal response, right? And I'm so glad you're normalizing that.
and it may, I know that there's always such a big conversation, um, but it also just points to the fact that we know the difference inside between right and wrong.
Yeah.
No one has to teach us that. So the goodness, what you see is this goodness in humanity's heart. Like humanity is really has such a good seed inside. And we know that because of how we respond to things that are injustice. And
Yeah.
it's innate. It's just something that comes out of people. You don't have to teach them. You don't have to train them that. But what we've done is we've suppressed it and we've made people feel guilty and we've shamed them for having this. So, I think what, as women here on the forefront, it's like, we're helping people trust themselves again, feel safe within themselves so that they can restore that self-love for that innate intelligence, for that gift, that intelligence that they have within, because that's naturally just going to start flowing forth. And we're seeing this in so many people right now, just awaken. And it's deeply healing these subconscious things. You talk about the conditioning that happens
Yeah.
and the trauma. A lot of times it's just traumas that we've experienced that get so deeply encoded in us that we're not safe if we feel that feeling. So the nervous system has this great self-anesthesia and we kind of get
Yeah.
numb, which is why, like people, we don't even know what it's like to feel ecstasy anymore, to
Yeah.
feel ourselves fully in our lives. So,
Totally. And I
so
think
much to
so
look
many
forward
people
to.
are just functioning in this narrow bandwidth. Like they don't give themselves permission to feel really, really good. And then as soon as they start to go on the downslope, the more heavier feelings, they self-medicate. So they're living in this really narrow band. It's like that's not what it means to fully live, right? And that the lower vibration energies aren't bad. I mean, there's so many, I think, kind of the rah-rah coaches. It's like, oh, let's snap you out of it and go into a high vibe state. It's like, no, 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 no. Let's stop. Let's feel. Let's integrate. So that's where you and I are so similar. And we use some of the similar tools. I mean, the style in which we practice chiropractic. I mean, you and I both liked NSA as a style and then developed our own style. And so, anyway, let's talk about, because I know a lot of my listeners are business owners, right? And so, this conversation, had just completed your course, and I will tell my story about that, with these amazing breakthroughs. And you would ask like, hey, would you be willing to share? And I said, of course, I'll do a testimonial. And here's the deal. The old way that used to work for me in marketing, which is let's put together a series of emails, let's post on social media. And then all of a sudden there would be people buying a course or doing something on the back end that supported business. And I had this heart to heart with you. I was like, Cynthia, I don't know about you, but that old way doesn't work. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and how, you know, how we navigate this world as business owners as things are rapidly changing.
Yeah, I think the rules are changing. And that's a really great thing because so much of what, behind the scenes, what used to motivate people, in a lot of marketing was, I have something that you don't have
Right.
and that you want to buy it. And that's part of what gets us into that trap of like externalizing, our authority, And so
Yes.
as people are naturally going through this shakedown, and this, they really are getting empowered and they're really starting to own that sense inside. So decisions are made from a different level. And I would even venture to say that though for most people it wouldn't be so conscious, maybe even just talking about it starts to energize and bring more awareness of it, but we start to respond on an instinct level. And an instinct, functions, an instinct is beyond our mind. An instinct is an embodied knowing. And you just start, and it's, and you don't, it's like not even up for debate. When you have an instinct, you're like, I'm doing this. Like, I am doing this. And the mind could be freaking, oh, I don't know what you're doing. I don't understand. That
You're
doesn't make any logical
crazy.
sense. It's like, it's
Right?
those times when you do something just
Yeah.
because you know you need to do it. Okay. And, like your partner might be like, you're crazy. That's a crazy risk you're taking. But when you do it and it works out, and you're like, and you
Yeah.
knew it, you were 100% sure that even though on one level it looked like this big risk, you knew so cellularly inside that it was exactly what you needed to do and you knew you were going to be sorted. And what happens? That just starts to open up. So I think, as we start to navigate this, we're wanting people to be empowered. So this is,
Yeah.
so we have to change, and all the rules of the structures are starting to change. It's more like we're moving into a different currency, a currency of
We are.
authenticity, a currency of I don't know if entrainment's the right word, but it's more like here's a resonant frequency that we're
Yep.
broadcasting. And being a part of that is
Yep.
contagious. And
Yeah.
that's that instinct of like that sensory system going, this is for me, this isn't for me, this is for me, this isn't for me. But it allows that internal authority to really make that decision, that to come from a different place. And so I think what we're in is we don't have the language necessarily, developed culturally, but this huge shift is starting to happen. And I think I'm really excited. I think
I'm
it's a really positive.
I'm
uh,
real yeah, I love that you brought in the word entrainment, and you and I have worked with that word for a long time. And I always like to think of kind of like if there's a bunch of birds that are out there in a field, right? And they're just hanging out doing their thing, and then the predator starts to come. And there's that first bird that doesn't even see the predator but knows to take flight, and then the whole flock
Yes.
works as a full-on unit of resonance of we're getting out of here, right? And so this idea of entrainment is that we all have energetic impact on one another, and there can be a collective good decision, right?
Yeah.
And that is more like survival instinct, kind of what you're talking about. But one of the things that I have, weaved into my body work is human design, and it speaks to this. We're all wired just a little bit differently, and so we can use the word instinct, and knowing that uniqueness of how does your instinct work, or how does that inner knowing, that wisdom. And you said cellular wisdom. I'm like, oh, that's another writer downer, Cynthia. The cellular wisdom, it doesn't involve the mind. The mind is great for analyzing, and it's great for logic. And I think we need to put the mind in its place. And going back to the heart space, le cœur, it's like what would happen in a world where we trusted this internal cellular wisdom that we all have, right? And knowing that what do they say? The mind is the servant to the heart. And I've been recently following this National Geographic kind of series that Tom Hanks is narrating, and they're taking us all over the world, and I'm totally loving it. And as you were sharing, I was thinking of like the school of fish. These, like, they had like the sardines, and they all work together and they look like a unit, right? And that's the collective. And so I think that as we tune in to this internal knowledge and wisdom, I think it's going to require an up leveling of leadership, right? Like, what does leadership look like when you have a team and you have the same goal, right? The same unified goal, But as you individuate and you know and you can honor your wisdom, right? How do you navigate then in the group collective? And so that's really what I'm playing with in this feminine leadership model, because at the root of it is collaboration. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not the old way as I'm competing with you. It's a
Mm-hmm.
how can we lock arms and head towards the same goal? And individually, we might have different ideas, but how do we create this new container? Because you need to honor both, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be times where, okay, that collective, that particular group, that particular tribe, they're not for you anymore, right? And so anyway, this is something that I'm not navigating in my own life, in my own world, and in business. I think we're developing new nuances of skills and a deep remembering
Yeah.
of working together to rise up.
Yeah. Well, I think like there's so many, when you talk about those birds, like taking off from the instinct, and the show that Tom Hanks is narrating, which I also have seen. Um, and the thing is like, but isn't it inspiring? Like that is the
Yes,
photography in that show is so beautiful. So what we know about life is that it's exquisitely beautiful and
it is.
inspiring. Okay.
It is.
And we also know that, what is happening in this collective is you talk about, oh, we all have these different contributions that we don't have the whole picture. We have parts of the picture, and that, like as we start to work together, I think, there's this, I know I've experienced it myself in my life, and I guarantee that you have too, but it's like there's this surrender to like not knowing. I don't
Yes.
know. I don't know. And then the magic happens. It's like all I know is that I need to take this next step right here. Now, I may
Yeah.
have a vision that I'm going to take this straight line and I'm going to go all the way over there, but that really doesn't ever happen. But that might get me excited to take that next step. But what I do know is I take that next step. And then I'm here and I look around, I go, oh my God, I didn't know we were going to be here and I couldn't see this from that last step. I just stepped in front of this
Totally.
bush and now everything looks different. So now I see the team differently and now something new emerges. And so, I there's a certain level of surrender and acceptance of the unknown that invites the mystery. And so instead of that
Mm,
unknown being scary and terrible, like now it's like the unknown is full of potential. And so
mm.
as we grow and as we start to do this, you see that happening over and over again. And I know these magical moments, Kelly, that we all have. It's like usually it's like when I throw my hands up, I'm like, I don't know what we're gonna say next. I don't know where we're gonna go with this. Like, what are we
Yep.
gonna do? It's just like, oh, I didn't know it. Like, and look at where we end up.
Totally.
So, I think that's where the magic lives for me. But I think each person is gonna kind of, bring that piece. And one thing that came up for me the other day was we have often in the past used this visualization of like, the monk climbing the mountain. We're climbing the mountain. And it's like it's one mountain, right?
Yeah.
And I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and there's like these beautiful peaks and mountains everywhere. And I know you live in the Rockies, so you're like, there's no,
Exactly.
I'm like, there's so many mountains. So what happens in this process is like we opt in and opt out, and there's periods of growth and alchemy where we come together and we work together, and it's great and it's enlivening. And then we grow, and then we're like, oh, well, but that's okay that I grew over here and you grew over here. Like that's how you do it. But that's like,
Yes.
I have this clear knowing. I'm like, that's no longer how I do it. That's
Yeah.
not my story. And so now I'm over here. And so this is my mountain, and this is what I'm coming up. And you meet a whole nother collective of people there, on your mountain. But I think it's a time, for us to, instead of visualizing one mountain with one answer and one way, I think that there's people are finding their path.
They're
And
finding their path for
that
sure.
instinct helps you be in the right place at the right time. But we're all not supposed to be in the same place at the same time, or we'd be just standing on each other's feet. So
Yeah.
we're all supposed to be propelled in different directions,
Yeah.
both coming together and moving apart. And the wisdom is the ability to just
Yep.
to acknowledge, and then to accept, like, oh, this is where I'm at now. And it may be hello to someone and something, and it may be goodbye to another, So I'm
Absolutely.
currently moving out of my space, this space right here that I'm zooming in from. I've loved it. I've been here for 12 years. it's been an absolutely amazing space. And last January, I just knew, I'm like, and it's an instinct, it's a total leap that
Yep.
I'm supposed to close this location on May 31st. And
Wow.
that's all I know, is it's
That's
time to
all
close
you
it.
know.
The
And
doors are already opening and I don't know where they're going and I don't know what's
exactly.
next. And there's tremendous unknown, but there's tremendous potential. Um, and there's just a huge amount of gift. But the wisdom that I can share in that is just, it took me, I've known this for years. It
Yep.
took me until this past January to acknowledge on such a deep level, I actually have to close this door in order to open the next. Some doors
Absolutely.
you can open them at multiple times, but this one, I had to say goodbye. And
Yeah. And there's
the
grieving in
decision was
that.
hard, but as soon
Yeah.
as I made it, I felt light and it's so good. So
Yeah, and you just know, and there's that element as you speak about, which is the mystery, the divine unknown, and that surrender place of letting go, and deeply, deeply surrendering. So yeah, there's so much wisdom there. It had me think also back to you and I are both so connected to nature. And the one thing, two things I can say here. One is I think that we live in times where it's really important that you have community. Like to really, it's not a time to be isolated. It's a time to lean in and find out as you have been evolving, you might create a new tribe, right? A new community. And I think that going back to human design, they whether or not you believe in human design, there is a prediction that these are times where these external structures are falling. And so your local community and your tribe is more important than ever. And I think that we've become so isolated in one way with social media. Like you might have a million friends, but how many, if you're sick, would bring you chicken soup? Right? Like that really is, right? Like the human heart to heart connection. And so I think it's an important time to find your tribe and lean into that tribe or create one. And then the other thing is I think nature is a rebalancer. And I know you know I literally want to lead into some of the body of work that you're doing with Ellen and what I just completed. And I think that's universal for anyone. I think nature is a great rebalancer and a reminder of cycles and just to spend some time in nature to refuel yourself because there's a lot of wisdom. We are nature. And you and I have hiked together. And I remember one time we were like, we want to see a bear and a elk. And we're like backpacking. I have that picture from forever ago. And what did we find? We set the intention and we aligned. And not only did we see a bear, we saw a mama bear and her baby bear, right? But it was like, yeah, I bring that here because you and I have a deep connection to nature together and animal wisdom. And so, will you tell us a little bit about this partnership with Ellen and this body of work that you have a course coming up, and tell us a little bit about that. And then also
yeah.
I'll share a little bit about my experience in it.
Yeah. So my friend and colleague Ellen Kittredge, and I have a course called Wisdom of the Body, Wisdom of Nature. And what it is it's a connection. It's how to connect both to your body in a safe way, how to start to work with connecting to that goodness, that learning new ways to kind of deepen that. And my colleague Ellen Kittredge brings the Indian connection. So she has studied with the Indian nature mystics, and she brings a lot of wisdom about how the Pacos work with reciprocity and their gratitude and their relationship with nature and how nature fills them. And both of these practices are super healing in aligning us with our natural resources because our body, the feelings, the things that we feel in our body, it's a battery and it's always with us. So we can always access that. And nature is always there. And even if you live in a city, nature is still always there. So there are ways that we can start to connect and lean into this. And in this course, we start to reimagine like kind of who we are and how everything works when you start to be fed. You start to feed nature in ways with your heart and your intention and just your gratitude. And then you start to receive a whole lot from nature that becomes very, very real to you and really is very life changing. So um, it's a really beautiful, transformative 6 weeks that we spend with people.
It is amazing what the two of you have co-created, what can happen in 6 weeks. And yeah, I
And you
mean
want to share a little bit about your
yeah,
experience?
the highlight, the biggest highlight has a direct impact on my passion project right now. And so many of you, if you've been following my Killy with Dr. Kelly, this was all initiated the morning of my official initiation of meeting my nature parents.
Yes,
And
so I should say that's what we do in this course is you actually,
yes,
I have to
yes,
tell you to
please.
understand your story. It would be important for them to know this. So as you start to dive into some of the elements of this course, one of the pieces is that in the Andes, they know that you are not only have your biological human parents, a mother and a father, but you are born next to within the energy bubble of a body of water and a mountain, just to be very brief and simplistic right now. And that is your nature mother and your nature father, and you are born within their nature energy. So in the course, you get to meet your own personal nature mother and nature father. And then I will hand the baton
And
back to Kelly.
it's the absolute coolest thing. And one of the things that I love, in fact, I remember you first introducing this to me, this concept to me. And I started the next time I was home back in Wilmington, Delaware, I kind of started playing with it. And that was months and months, maybe even over, it was like over a year ago, because you said, I'm really doing this nature work. And I'm like, okay, this sounds cool. And one of the things I learned is that in this tradition, it's such a part of their tradition is like if a child falls and hurts him or herself, like the mother kind of connects to the nature parent to integrate the feelings that a traumatized child would feel in that moment. And so instead, it goes back to what we were saying earlier in the conversation today about integrating emotions and not making them wrong. So that these children grow up and they have got their parents, right? But then they have these like nature parents that they can call upon. Anywho. So I'll bringing nature and weaving in that storyline. I'll try to do a quick version, which is always challenging for me. But basically, on a Saturday night, I was doing some whiteboarding or cleared a whiteboard because I had goal setting for 2025 session with a friend of mine the very next day, and I was unprepared. So I figured I'll do some mind mapping. And a circle appeared, two circles. You know how you draw the circle and all the extended thoughts. One was climb a big mountain, going back to mountain, and the other was align with a philanthropic cause. The very next morning was initiation in Cynthia and Ellen's course, meeting your nature parents. So I go through the initiation. It's literally called an initiation. And by late morning, the woman that I was supposed to do the goal setting with canceled on me. So I called my friend and we go for a hike. And the first nature thing is two women say, be really careful. I know it's November, but we've seen rattlesnakes, so be really careful. And I was like, okay, I understand. And so anyway, we finish the loop. We're sitting under a tree. And I'm like, Annie, what's really going on? We hadn't seen each other for about 6 years. She said, I'm building a school in Africa. And as she says this, I'm like, oh, I went in full body chills, right? And nature, a woodpecker came. And there is a connection with woodpecker in human design, which is like 70% of my chart. That's the animal that kind of speaks to me. And it's an animal also related to initiation. And I said, hey, how about we take a group of women, climb Mount Kilimanjaro, raise funds, build a school, let's do the whole thing. And as I'm taking the video out of the woodpecker, what I didn't know until I got home, that rattlesnake thing was the fear side, the low vibration of that same gift that I have. So there's how nature, and I mean, who would have thought, but I know it's all connected. Everything's interconnected. So I'm just so grateful that that initiation was that morning and it was like everything opened up for me. And there are no coincidences. So, not to say that if you take the course, you're going to have your whole life figured out or anything like that, but there will be magic. 100%. I witness every person in this class have their own version of healing, transformation, connection. So I speak so highly, both of Ellen and Cynthia. They're amazing women that hold space. And in 6 weeks, you really you have a new awareness.
Yeah.
Have a new awareness of this cellular wisdom that we're talking about and the opening of the heart. That's what I got from it.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. Yeah.
So
Beautiful. Such a beautiful experience. And there's just so much, synchronicity and serendipity that happens in that. And it's just, you know, connecting to resources. It's like we just don't even realize it's right there. It's right
Right
there.
there.
And I think that's the piece that when people start to understand your nature parents, like they're these energetic beings, and you can call on them right now. I mean, they're just, and the more this happens, you're you know, that serendipity and those resources, it really starts to change the makeup of your reality of, you know, how you would market your next course. It's like, well, how does that
Exactly.
work? You know, what is it that you're gonna, what is it that you have to share? And how are the rules changing, and how are you going to show up to meet those rules the way they are? So
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
really cool.
And it's those moments of distinction that you just know.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't like, oh, let me see spirit. Let me see. How would I do the website and who would I ask and how would I? It's like that's mind stuff,
Mm.
right? And it was like this deep level of channeling, and I didn't look back, right? And so whatever questioning that you have in life, personal life, business life, it doesn't matter the wisdom's inside and having tools like this breath work, body work, wisdom work, nature work. Um, it really can allow us to have more grace in our lives and be guided. We don't need somebody else. Leadership looks different nowadays, and you've got to lead yourself first. Know thyself first, right? Goes back
Mm.
to Socrates. And I think that we're both kind of working, and Ellen, with this wisdom. So, what I would like to do is, if you can share what your website is, so people can learn more about you. I know you have a newsletter, and I know you're opening up another class coming in. And 10 out of 10 of that class was absolutely amazing. I couldn't recommend it more.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Kelly. If you do want to check out and find out more information about this course, my website is, and it's a little tricky because it is French. So it's Leceur, Leceur Asheville. So it's Leceur Asheville.com. And on there, it's wisdom of the body, wisdom of nature. We also have some upcoming courses that are going to be starting soon, but aren't listed yet. So if you want to shoot me a message, through the site, I'm happy to put you on the newsletter and keep you up to date with, you know, all the new happenings and all the new things going on. You know, in the meantime, I would say, you know, just get out in nature. I mean, we
Get
all
out in
just
nature.
get
Yes.
out in nature and have an experience. It starts to fill us, and you know, the wisdom is there. And sometimes, you know, it's in a woodpecker, sometimes it's in the flight of a bird, and you'll just have this realization, this knowingness of this truth that we are. I mean, like you said, we are nature. We are not separate from nature, which is what um, you know, we do in this particular course and work is really help people, you know, understand that that's one thing. It's really one thing that we're talking about, and that is that we are nature, and this is how we can start to heal our relationship with ourselves, stop trying to dominate and control, and really move into it. So, the other thing in regards to leadership that I wanted to say is the difference between, you know, thinking and knowing is an embodied sense. And when we know something, it's like we know it, and there's a feeling in
Totally.
it. And when we think something, we can think of all kinds of possibilities, and it's up for debate, and it's up for influence from other sources and all kinds of things, but it's different. And we all have experiences where we had that knowing. And I think that's the difference, I think, in leadership, you know, going forward, is that it's going to come from a more surrendered, a more dropped in, a more loving presence of our knowingness of our common hearts. So
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I couldn't agree more. And that's the new way. This
that's the
embodied
way.
wisdom way that often your mind could never figure it out.
Never mind. And
That's
it's
the
so stressful
magic.
because think of all the things we're trying to figure out with our minds. You know, it's
Yes.
like how to eat, like what to eat, what diet's right for me, all these things. It's like, you know, your body knows.
Your
Like get in touch with
body
your body and
knows.
you'll make a better choice.
Exactly.
But we often, you know, we turn to other resources first that increase our thinking.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
put the mind in its place. Allow it to be the servant
mind
of
in
the
its
heart.
place
Put it
and
in its place.
let it rest. Let it
Let
rest.
it
It's worked
rest.
so hard for us.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. This was so much fun. And we'll be sure to put the website in the like in the comments,
Comment
and people
section.
can
Yeah.
follow you. And yeah, what
It
a
was
great
such a pleasure.
conversation.
It's so great talking to you, Kelly, and I can't
Yes.
wait for what shows up next. My
Yes.
goodness.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.